As we gear up for the next race season and you're ready to come out and try criteriums, we have our 10 tips and things you should know before you show up for your first race day. So here we go, stay tuned. Hi guys, Joel and Katie here from Orbital Racing, and we are bringing you our 10 tips and things you should know before you show up for race day. So let's get into it.
All right, tip number 1 is know the course. Before a race day, you want to go out and check out the course you're going to be racing on. You kind of want to study the layout. You want to know where the key turns are, what the kind of road surface conditions are, where the potholes are, what elevation gains are on the course, and then key attack sections, key areas where you can sprint and possibly get away. If you can, go pre-ride the course, or you can even watch videos from previous races on that course, and then you can kind of pick up, how the course is raced and kind of get some familiarity with where crashes may happen, where to conserve energy, and more importantly, where to attack. All right, and tip number 2 is you need to bring the right gear. So first of all, you want your bike to be in good condition. So you kind of want to check the brakes, you want to check that it's shifting properly and everything like that. You don't want to show up and then have mechanicals because you didn't check your bike out the day before. You want to bring your helmet, obviously. You need your kit, your jersey and bibs. If it's a USAC sanctioned race like ours is, you need your USAC race license number to give to the referees. And then you want nutrition, especially if you're going to be racing multiple races or it's hot outside. You're going to want water. You may want electrolytes, energy gels, things like that to keep you in the race. And then you want some tools and a flat repair kit. A number of times we've had people get flats even on the warm-ups before the race, and we've been able to swap out a wheel, swap out a tire, or fix the flat before their first race and get them going. And then finally, if you are going to a race where you can't warm up on the course itself, you want to bring some sort of trainer or have another route planned out that you can go kind of ride around on and get warmed up before your race begins.
Brings us to tip number 3, arrive early and check in. From a race director's perspective, it is nothing worse than someone showing up 2 minutes before the race starts asking for their bib number. So if you show up early, it gives you time to check in, pick up your race number. It gives you that time to not rush. From a racer's perspective, you are more relaxed. You're able to take the time, pin your bib number on, get ready for the race, and it just provides you an opportunity to not feel stressed and that you can walk into your race with a clear head.
All right, and that brings us to tip number 4. So this one's about warming up properly. There's probably nothing more important than getting a good warm up before your crit race, because crit races tend to go out fast and furious from the gun. And they're short, intense races, so if you're not warmed up, you can be feeling bad right away. So here's our recommendations for how to get a good warm up. First of all, it's important to get there early, like the last tip said. That gives you time to ride the course when the course is open for about 10 to 15 minutes. Just kind of get your legs moving, get them warmed up, and then you're going to want to do about 5 short sprints, short intense efforts, and that just gets your heart rate up, and it gets your cardiovascular system ready to go, and it gets your legs ready for that intensity so that they're ready to go. So if you do this, this is really going to help you get a good start in your race.
All right, that brings us to tip number 5. Line up early for a good starting position. From a race director's perspective, I hate hollering to get people to come to the starting line. So showing up to the starting line a few minutes early before the race starts, 5 to 10 minutes for those larger criterium races, unlike our grassroots, is going to put you in the best place possible. So by showing up early, you're going to be able to get the positioning where you want. If you're comfortable and you can line up in the front and you want to do that, then that gives you that opportunity to be up in the front. If you're not as comfortable, you can be in the middle towards the back. But if you're late showing up to the starting line, especially for those big one-day criterium races, and you're starting in the back, you're going to be burning some matches to fight for the position. So do yourself a favor, and every race director too. Show up early to the starting line.
All right, tip number 6. This one's about racing smart and also racing safely. So again, what you want to do during the actual race is try to stay near the front, but not on the very front where you're in the wind, wasting a bunch of energy. Unless you're part of a team and you're working for a team or something like that, you kind of want to stay in the top third of the pack. This puts you in a good position to watch for other attacks, save energy, because as you go through corners, there tends to be this accordion effect, and if you're on the back, you're always surging and trying to catch up. And it just puts you in a good, efficient position. It's also a safer position to be in when you're up closer to the front, because if there is a crash, it's more likely that crash is going to be behind you as opposed to in front of you, causing you to crash or have issues. So that's one of the best tips for doing well in a crit, is just kind of staying in the top third of the pack as much as you can. The other thing is you want to hold your line in corners. You don't want to make any sudden movements. You don't want to be sporadic. During a corner is not the time to try to jump out and attack. You can attack coming out of the corner, but if you start getting spazzy, like you're going to make the other racers very nervous, and you might cause a crash, so you don't want to do that. And then speaking of corners, going through the corners, you should expect a hard acceleration coming out of that corner. A lot of times as you go through a corner, things slow down a little bit, and then everybody guns it coming out of the corner to try to get some separation. So just be ready for that as you go into the corner, and that'll help you out.
All right, that brings us to tip number 7, which is before you jump into a criterium race, you should go on some group rides. Criteriums are tight and fast races. They're packed in and close quarters riding. So the first time that you are in close quarters riding like that should not be during a criterium race. The best thing that you can do is to go join your local cycling clubs or cycling groups and do some group rides. That way you can understand how dynamics like that work, how to hold somebody's wheel, and also just the feel of being in packed tight. If you don't like being packed in tight and you don't like having those close quarters, then the crits are probably not the best thing for you. But that's a good opportunity to go see and feel what it feels like.
Yeah, and the other important thing here is that if you've never ridden in a group, you've never felt the advantage that you get from drafting, and you have to be really comfortable kind of riding less than a foot off of the wheel in front of you and just sticking to that wheel. You don't want to open up gaps in the peloton if you can, avoid it. And the more you can ride right on someone's wheel and protect yourself from the wind, the more efficient you're going to be in the race, and the more fresh you're going to be for that final sprint finish or the final lap. All right, now we're going to talk about tip number 8, which is understanding the rules of the crit that you're racing in. So there can be some differences between the more grassroots-like criterium races like we run with the Orbital Crit Series versus the big one-day races like Tour de Grandview, which we run in the Columbus area. So I'm going to talk about a couple of those rules. One is the dropped rider rule. So if you come out to our Crit Series, it's meant to be beginner-friendly and a good place for you to start out and get some experience with crit riding. And that means that if you're racing and you get dropped by the pack, and even if the top riders start to lap you, the referee's not going to pull you off the course. They're just going to keep letting you race and get the best position you can, which I think is really important for a grassroots beginner-friendly series. If you're racing in some of the big one-day races like Tour de Grandview, that's not the case. There's more people. It's a more intense race, and the referees are trying to do a good job of scoring. And so what they will do is if you get dropped, and especially if you start to get lapped, they will actually pull you off the course and you'll be done for that race. So please be aware of that, whether or not that rule is implemented in the race you're going to. The second thing is that a lot of people don't understand is the free lap rule and the pit. So at most races, including our Orbital Crit series, we'll have a pit where you can put tools and spare wheels and things like that. And so like if you're in the race and you have a mechanical issue, or if you have a small crash and you get dropped and it takes you a second to get up and get going again, what you want to do is you want to go straight to that pit and tell the refs what happened. And as long as the riders haven't come around again already, the refs will let you back into the race when they come back around, and that's called the free lap rule. And so the free lap rule will end at a certain point during the race, so it just depends on the race as to when it ends. But let's say for this race, if there's 5 laps to go, that's when the free lap rule ends. So anytime before you get to the last 5 laps or the last X amount of time, the referee will let you have 1 free lap if you've had a legitimate reason, like a mechanical or a crash or something like that, and they'll let you get back in the race.
That brings us to tip number 9, which is smart sprinting and how to leave it all on the line. So sprinting is something that you have to be extremely strategic about when you attack. You've got to know where the finish line is and where to start your sprint. That comes from doing your pre-race ride around, so that in your mind you can say, all right, right here at this point is when I need to start my sprint. So you always have to look too for the best wheel to follow. If you're riding with your team, then obviously you're going to have a lead out man, and that way you can use your momentum, right? So don't try to go too early and don't get boxed in, because everyone's going to be fighting for position. So you got to sprint smart and you got to leave it all on the line during that time. Before we get to our last tip, make sure you go hit the button to like and subscribe so that you're able to get our videos as we ramp up to race season, so that you get all the footage from Orbital Crit Series and Tour de Grandview, and maybe some stuff in between that we're gonna go do. So make sure you hit those buttons for me, and then also in the comments below, provide what you think are some tips that people should know before they show up for their first criterium race. All right, let's get to the last tip.
All right, and last but not least, tip number 10. Criteriums are some of the most exhilarating, challenging, and rewarding races in cycling. And so if you've never tried it before, we highly recommend that you find your local grassroots type cycling event for criterium racing. If you're in the Dayton area or anywhere close, please come check out the Orbital Racing Orbital Crit Series, because these grassroots events are just more laid back. They're more relaxing. They're a more beginner-friendly environment. The other racers are going to be more relaxed, more willing to talk to you, give you tips, and it's not a big deal if you don't do well your first time. You can always come back. It's a 6-race series this season, and so it provides you opportunities throughout the entire summer to come and try it over and over again and get your experience up in a beginner-friendly environment. So if you've never been out for a crit race, come join us.
All right, and there you have it. That's our 10 tips and things you should know before showing up for your first race. We're excited to see you guys out on the course. If you have other comments and suggestions, please put them below so other racers can have them. And we look forward to the beginning of the race season. See you guys out on the course. And we look forward to the beginning of the race season. See you guys out on the course. I'm keeping that in.